Hi everyone, it's Kim Russo of America's Great Loop Cruisers Association. I am back with leg 5 of our Great Loop aboard the Perch. This was a really long cruising day. We are going from Fort Lauderdale to Stuart, which is about 70 miles. Decided to do that in one day for a couple of reasons that I'll describe as we go through this. But overall, it was a really long cruising day, which our Nubo log will show. We got underway a little bit later than is typical for us. We had been leaving at about 7:30 a.m., but the daylight savings time began over the weekend, and therefore it was still kind of dark at 7:30. And then as we got closer to leaving Fort Lauderdale, there's some pretty low bridges that we can just clear comfortably. The tide was a little bit higher, and those bridges don't open during rush hour in the morning, so those few things kind of delayed our start. So we set out at about 8:30. Beautiful cruise on the new river, back down that winding river to the intracoastal to continue our Great Loop. And because we weren't so concerned this time about the 30-mile-an-hour wind gusts as we were getting ready to dock in unfamiliar territory, we were able to enjoy the scenery a little bit, all of the opulence, the mansions, the big boats, just a beautiful river cruise. And even as we got back onto the intracoastal, that lifestyle remained, where there was just huge house after huge house after huge house with beautiful boats in front of each and every one. Still a very windy day. And other than the wind, really the story of today's cruise was just a lot of no-wake zones and a lot of waiting for bridges that had to be opened. There are a lot of low bridges in this area of the Atlantic Intracoastal Waterway. They are well timed, and what I mean by that is if one bridge opens on the hour and the half hour, the next one just up the river will open on the 15 and 45 minutes past the hour, so that you're not waiting for a long time for any bridge. They're kind of timed, so as you progress, you'll be hitting the next bridge pretty close to its opening time. But it still does cause delays, and it still does make for a long day. In addition to all of the no-wake zones and waiting for bridges, we needed a fuel stop today. And we did our research before we left. We did find the lowest price for diesel without leaving the route we were going to be cruising today was $3.99. Today is March 14th, so that's a little bit of a benchmark for you. It has been going up in a lot of places. This was at Marina Del Rey. $3.99 was the price for diesel today. So we took on 300 gallons, so pretty painful. But in looking at some of the other places around, there are prices out there for diesel along the way that are over $6. We even saw a few over $7. So when you're taking on 300 gallons, saving $2 or $3 a gallon is a huge savings. So definitely do your research before taking on fuel with fuel prices where they are right now. The other noteworthy thing about today's cruise is that the Perch crossed her wake on the Florida loop, because when we left Charleston back in November, we headed south first to winter in Fort Myers, and when we got to Stuart and hit the Okeechobee Waterway, we took that straight across to Fort Myers. So from Fort Myers, we of course started our Great Loop and went south through the Keys, and we have now arrived back in Stuart, which is where we crossed our wake on what is known as the Florida Loop, and that's doing that circle I just described of South Florida. We pulled into a marina in Stuart for the evening, tied up about 7:30 at night without much time to do too much else except catch up on a little bit of work and get ready for tomorrow's cruise. We're pushing pretty hard right now, and it's one of the things that I'm learning pretty quickly is that, yes, you absolutely can work on the loop, but there are some challenges related to timing, and since Michael and I both work full-time, we are experiencing those challenges, particularly because travel is a requirement for his job, and we have a AGLCA event coming up in Houston next week that we are hoping to fly out of Charleston for. So a couple of benchmarks we're trying to hit along the way. Totally prepared to leave the boat and take a car where we need to be to fly out of if required because of weather. So we're definitely making good choices as far as that's concerned, but we are pushing hard and doing some long days. So tomorrow is looking like another 70-mile day. It should not take us as many hours as today took us because there are fewer no-wake zones and fewer bridges to wait on. So we are expecting that to be about an 8-hour cruise tomorrow. Here is today's Nebo log. It shows 10 hours underway. From our start time to our finish time was actually more like 11 hours, but I think Nebo is not counting, the fuel stop and some of the longer stops at bridges, so it seems to have lost an hour somewhere in that time frame. The distance was just over 70 miles, and we averaged 7.1 knots. We've been averaging more between 8 and 9, so that just kind of shows you about the slowdowns for the no-wake and the bridges. So again, about a 70-mile day. There's what the overall path looks like up the Atlantic Intracoastal in Florida. More to come soon. We'll be back tomorrow with the next leg. Leg 6 will take us from here in Stuart to Melbourne, Florida, if everything goes as planned. Thanks for watching.